The Barber paradox, a self-referential dilemma. The Barber paradox, first introduced by Bertrand Russell in the early 20th century, serves as a classic example of a self-referential paradox, exposing key issues in logic and set theory. To grasp the paradox, imagine a small town where there is only one barber, and he follows a very specific rule. He shaves all and only those men who do not shave themselves. This seemingly simple rule, however, gives rise to a perplexing question. Does the barber shave himself? To unpack this paradox, we must examine the implications of the barber's rule. If the barber shaves himself, then according to his own rule, he should not shave himself. The rule explicitly states that the barber shaves only those who do not shave themselves. Thus, if the barber shaves himself, he cannot belong to the group he shaves, creating a contradiction. On the other hand, if the barber does not shave himself, then he must be one of the men whom the barber shaves. This again leads to a contradiction, as the rule dictates that if the barber doesn't shave himself, he should be shaved by the barber. This paradox highlights a fundamental problem in self-referential systems. It reveals that defining a set or a rule that includes or excludes itself can lead to logical inconsistencies. The Barber paradox is a specific instance of a broader category of self-referential paradoxes that challenge our ability to categorize and define sets in ways that avoid contradictions. Russell's paradox, including the Barber paradox, emerged during a period when mathematicians were striving to establish a solid foundation for mathematics. The early 20th century witnessed considerable efforts to formalize mathematical logic and set theory. However, the discovery of paradoxes like Russell's uncovered serious flaws in these systems. The Barber paradox showed that certain naive approaches to set theory, where sets could be defined in terms of themselves, were inherently problematic. The Barber paradox is not merely a theoretical conundrum. It has real implications for how we understand and structure formal systems. It forces us to reconsider the rules and definitions we use to categorize and analyze sets. By presenting a situation in which the barber's self-referential rule leads to a logical contradiction, the Barber paradox underscores the need for more robust frameworks in both mathematics and logic. As we explore this paradox further, we will see its influence on the development of modern logic and set theory. The Barber paradox serves as a catalyst for revising and refining formal systems to address issues of self-reference and avoid contradictions. Understanding this paradox is crucial for appreciating the evolution of mathematical logic and the ongoing efforts to create consistent and reliable formal systems. To truly appreciate the significance of the Barber paradox, it is important to delve into its logical and philosophical implications. The paradox does more than simply illustrate a logical inconsistency. It delves into the complexities of self-reference in formal systems. To understand these aspects, we must explore how the paradox relates to broader logical issues and its impact on modern mathematics and philosophy. At its core, the Barber paradox challenges our understanding of set theory and self-reference. It questions the validity of constructing sets or rules that refer to themselves. This self-referential nature is where the paradox originates. The barber's rule creates a situation where his identity as a member of the set he shaves leads to a logical contradiction. This scenario reflects a more general problem in formal logic: how to handle statements or sets that refer to themselves without causing inconsistencies. One of the key logical issues highlighted by the Barber paradox is the problem of defining a set that includes or excludes itself. This issue is not unique to the Barber paradox, but is a common theme in various self-referential paradoxes. For example, Russell's famous paradox presents the idea of a set of all sets that do not contain themselves. Both paradoxes expose the limitations of naive set theory, where sets can be defined without restrictions on their membership criteria. The Barber paradox also illustrates the broader concept of self-reference in logic. Self-reference occurs when a statement or rule refers to itself, creating a loop that can lead to contradictions. In formal logic, managing self-reference requires careful definitions and constraints to avoid paradoxical outcomes. The Barber paradox serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of self-referential definitions and the necessity for more rigorous logical frameworks. In response to paradoxes like the Barber paradox, mathematicians and philosophers have developed various solutions to address issues of self-reference. One such approach is to revise the foundational principles of set theory. Type theory, introduced by Bertrand Russell himself, offers a solution by categorizing sets into different types to prevent self-reference. In this system, sets are organized hierarchically, and a set of a certain type cannot contain sets of the same or higher type. This prevents self-referential definitions and avoids the paradoxes associated with them. Another influential approach is Z.F. Zermelo-Fraenkel set theory, which incorporates the axiom of regularity and other constraints to avoid paradoxes. The axiom of regularity, also known as the axiom of foundation, ensures that no set is a member of itself, thus preventing self-referential definitions that lead to paradoxes. ZF set theory provides a more consistent framework for dealing with paradoxes involving sets, avoiding the contradictions highlighted by the Barber paradox and similar issues. These responses reflect the evolution of mathematical logic, demonstrating the ongoing effort to refine and strengthen the foundations of mathematics in light of the challenges posed by paradoxes. Beyond mathematics, the Barber paradox has philosophical implications for our understanding of formal systems and self-reference. It raises questions about the nature of definitions and the limits of formal reasoning. The paradox highlights the need for precise definitions and constraints in any formal system to avoid contradictions. Philosophically, the paradox also touches on issues related to language and meaning. It challenges our ability to create consistent rules and definitions when dealing with self-reference, underscoring the complexity of formalizing concepts and the importance of carefully constructing systems to avoid logical inconsistencies. To fully appreciate the significance of the Barber paradox, we must examine its impact on various fields beyond pure logic and set theory. The paradox has not only influenced the development of mathematical frameworks, but it has also left a lasting impact on computer science, philosophy, and the study of formal systems. By exploring these areas, we gain a deeper understanding of how the Barber paradox has shaped modern thought. In computer science, the Barber paradox has notable implications, particularly in programming and database theory. Self-referential paradoxes highlight challenges in designing algorithms and systems that must handle recursive definitions and queries. In programming, recursion is a common technique in which functions call themselves. While recursion is a powerful tool, it can lead to complications if not managed properly. The Barber paradox exemplifies the types of issues that can arise from self-referential constructs. In database theory, similar challenges occur when dealing with recursive queries and hierarchical data structures. For example, consider a database of organizational structures where an employee can have subordinates, and those subordinates can have their own subordinates, forming a hierarchy. Querying such recursive structures requires careful design to avoid paradoxical results or infinite loops. The lessons learned from paradoxes like the Barber paradox help in creating more robust database systems that can handle recursion without running into contradictions. The Barber paradox also resonates with philosophical inquiries into the nature of truth, self-reference, and the limits of human cognition. Philosophers have long grappled with questions about how self-referential statements can lead to paradoxes and what this reveals about the nature of meaning and truth. The Barber paradox serves as a concrete example of how self-reference can create logical problems, prompting deeper reflection on the nature of statements and their logical consistency. In cognitive science, the paradox highlights the challenges humans face when dealing with complex self-referential systems. Understanding and resolving such paradoxes requires sophisticated cognitive abilities and reasoning skills. By studying how individuals approach and resolve paradoxes, researchers gain insights into human cognition and the limits of our logical capacities. In education, the Barber paradox is used to illustrate key concepts in logic and mathematics. It serves as a valuable teaching tool for demonstrating the complexities of self-reference and the importance of formal definitions. Educators use the paradox to encourage critical thinking and to show how logical systems must be carefully constructed to avoid contradictions. Teaching the Barber paradox also introduces students to the broader context of paradoxes and their significance in mathematical and philosophical discussions. By exploring the paradox, students learn about the historical development of logical systems and the ongoing efforts to address foundational issues in mathematics. The Barber paradox has also made its way into popular culture, where it serves as a symbol of the complexities of logic and self-reference. In literature, self-referential paradoxes often appear as motifs that explore themes of identity, truth, and the nature of reality. The Barber paradox, like other logical paradoxes, serves as a metaphor for the challenges of understanding and defining complex concepts. In films and books, mind-bending paradoxes that explore themes of recursion and self-reference often draw on the ideas illustrated by the Barber paradox. These cultural references help to popularize and disseminate the ideas associated with formal logic and paradoxes, making them accessible to a broader audience. The Barber paradox extends far beyond its origins in set theory and logic. Its influence spans computer science, philosophy, education, and popular culture. By examining its impact on these diverse fields, we gain a deeper appreciation for the paradox's significance and the ongoing efforts to address the challenges it presents. The Barber paradox serves as a reminder of the complexities involved in formal reasoning and the need for rigorous frameworks to handle self-referential constructs. As we continue to grapple with these issues, the paradox remains a powerful tool for exploring the limits of human understanding and the nature
choice
of formal
paradox.
systems.
Why more options may lead to less satisfaction. It's a surprising notion, but having more choices doesn't always translate to greater happiness. In fact, it can sometimes result in greater dissatisfaction. This concept, known as the paradox of choice, was introduced by psychologist Barry Schwartz in his book, The Paradox of Choice: Why More is Less. To grasp this paradox, let's start with a simple scenario. Picture yourself in an ice cream shop with 10 different flavors to choose from. On the surface, having more flavors seems like a great advantage, as it allows you to select exactly what you desire. However, when confronted with so many options, you might feel overwhelmed and struggle to make a decision. This feeling of being swamped by choices can lead to anxiety, regret, and even dissatisfaction with the final decision you make. Schwartz explains that the paradox arises from several factors. One key factor is decision fatigue. When presented with an array of options, the mental strain of evaluating each one can be draining. This fatigue can impair our ability to make satisfying decisions and may even cause indecision or decision paralysis, where no choice feels entirely right. Another significant factor is regret. With so many alternatives, you might constantly question your selection, fearing that another choice could have been better. This leads to feelings of regret, which can overshadow the satisfaction you derive from your final choice, leaving you less content overall. Additionally, the expectation of perfection plays a role. When there are multiple options, individuals may wait for the perfect choice, believing that with enough time and effort, they will find the ideal option. This pursuit of perfection can result in dissatisfaction, even with the best possible choices, because they might not meet the imagined ideal. The paradox also emphasizes
how choice overload can negatively affect our well-being. Research has shown that when we are faced with too many options, our satisfaction often decreases and stress increases. The mental effort required to compare and evaluate numerous choices can lead to feeling overwhelmed, reducing contentment with the final decision. As we continue to explore the paradox, it's crucial to consider how the number of choices we encounter in various areas of life, like shopping, career decisions, and personal relationships, impacts our happiness and overall well-being. In the next section, we'll delve into the psychological mechanisms behind the paradox of choice, examining the factors that contribute to it and exploring real-world examples of how choice overload influences decision-making and satisfaction. To truly understand the paradox of choice, we must explore the psychological mechanisms that drive it. Several key concepts shed light on why too many choices can lead to anxiety and dissatisfaction. One important concept is maximization versus satisficing. Maximizers are people who strive to make the absolute best choice by exhaustively exploring all available options. They are often driven by the desire for the most optimal outcome. On the other hand, satisficers are content with a choice that meets their criteria without feeling the need to search for the perfect option. Studies have shown that maximizers tend to experience higher levels of anxiety and regret because they continually assess whether their decision is the best possible one. This tendency often leads to lower satisfaction compared to satisficers who are more content with their decisions. The choice paralysis phenomenon also plays a crucial role in the paradox. When confronted with too many options, individuals may find it hard to make a decision, causing delays or even complete avoidance of making a choice. The stress and frustration that accompany this indecision can diminish satisfaction and lead to negative emotions. Another critical factor is self-doubt. When there are many options, people may constantly second-guess their decisions, questioning whether they made the right choice. This self-doubt can be amplified by the fear of missing out on a better option or the belief that there was a better, more optimal choice they didn't consider. This ongoing questioning undermines the satisfaction and enjoyment that could otherwise be derived from the chosen option. Social comparison also influences the paradox of choice. With so many options available, individuals often compare their choices with those made by others. This comparison can lead to feelings of inadequacy or dissatisfaction, especially if they believe others have made better decisions. Social comparison can intensify regret and diminish the joy of the chosen option. Additionally, the opportunity cost becomes more significant when there are many choices. The more options people face, the greater the awareness of what they are sacrificing with each decision. This heightened awareness can lead to greater dissatisfaction with the choice made, as individuals dwell on the alternatives they missed. Next, we'll explore real-world examples of how the paradox of choice shows up in different contexts, such as consumer behavior, career decisions, and personal relationships. We will also discuss potential strategies to mitigate the negative effects of choice overload and improve overall satisfaction. The paradox of choice has profound implications in various aspects of life, including consumer behavior, career decisions, and personal relationships. By examining real-world examples and strategies for managing choice overload, we can gain valuable insights into how to navigate this paradox effectively. One of the most widely recognized examples of the paradox of choice occurs in shopping. When consumers are faced with an overwhelming number of products, they often experience choice overload, which can lead to dissatisfaction and reduced enjoyment of their purchases. For example, a study on jam selection found that people were more likely to buy a jar of jam when presented with fewer options compared to when there was a wider selection. The larger variety led to more deliberation and second-guessing, resulting in lower satisfaction with the final choice. The paradox of choice is also evident in career decisions. With an abundance of career opportunities available, individuals may struggle to make a decision, feeling overwhelmed by the possibilities. This can lead to analysis paralysis, where the pressure to make the perfect choice results in procrastination or indecision. Furthermore, the fear of missing out on a potentially better career path can contribute to dissatisfaction and regret, even after a decision has been made. In personal relationships, the paradox of choice manifests in the dating world. With numerous potential partners available through dating apps and social networks, people may feel overwhelmed by the options, making it difficult to commit to one person. This abundance of choices can result in decreased satisfaction with relationships, as individuals may constantly wonder if they could find a better match or if they are settling for less than they deserve. To address the paradox of choice and minimize its negative effects, several strategies can be employed. One effective approach is decision simplification. By narrowing down options and focusing on essential criteria, individuals can reduce the cognitive load involved in decision making, leading to greater satisfaction with their choices. For instance, setting clear priorities and eliminating irrelevant options can make the decision process more manageable. Another strategy is to limit choices intentionally. By reducing the number of options available, individuals can ease the complexity of decision making, leading to greater contentment with their final decision. For example, when shopping, limiting the number of products considered can result in quicker decisions and higher satisfaction with the purchase. Additionally, adopting a satisficing mindset rather than a maximizing one can help reduce the pressure associated with decision making. Embracing the idea that a choice doesn't have to be perfect and that satisfactory options are acceptable can alleviate anxiety and stress. By focusing on options that meet basic criteria rather than seeking the absolute best, individuals can achieve greater satisfaction and peace of mind. Finally, practicing gratitude and acceptance can help individuals appreciate their choices and reduce feelings of regret. By recognizing the positive aspects of the chosen option and accepting that no decision is free of trade-offs, people can enhance their satisfaction and reduce the negative impact of choice overload. In conclusion, the paradox of choice offers important insights into the complexities of decision-making and the effects of choice overload. By understanding the psychological mechanisms behind the paradox and employing strategies to manage choices, individuals can navigate decisions more effectively and increase their overall satisfaction with their choices. The paradox of infinite steps and motion. This thought experiment delves into the concepts of motion and infinity, particularly the complexities that arise when we consider the idea of an infinite sequence. Picture yourself preparing for a race. According to Zeno, before you can cross the finish line, you must first cover half the total distance. Upon reaching this halfway point, you will need to cover half of what remains. Then, after completing that, you must continue in the same way, halving the remaining distance each time, endlessly. This process might sound simple, but it leads to a perplexing dilemma. How can you ever reach the finish line if there are an infinite number of distances to cover? To visualize this, imagine you are running. At the start, you cover half of the total distance. Upon reaching this halfway mark, you then cover half of the remaining distance. This process continues indefinitely, resulting in an endless series of steps. No matter how far you run, there always seems to be more ground to cover. The infinite division of the distance suggests that you should never be able to reach the finish line, presenting a paradox. How can something finite, such as reaching a destination, be completed if it involves an infinite number of steps? This paradox challenges our intuitive understanding of both space and motion. We typically experience the world as though we can move freely from one point to another without encountering an endless series of obstacles. However, Zeno's paradox suggests that if we must take an infinite number of steps, completing any journey would appear to be an impossible task. Zeno's paradox is not merely a mathematical puzzle, it also presents a philosophical dilemma. As a follower of Parmenides, Zeno believed that motion and change are mere illusions. The dichotomy paradox, in particular, was designed to show that the very concept of motion leads to logical contradictions. If an infinite number of steps are required to move from one place to another, it seems that motion itself is impossible. This paradox invites us to question the nature of reality, as well as our understanding of time and space. It challenges the assumption that motion is a natural part of our experience and forces us to consider whether our basic understanding of how we move through the world is flawed. If completing a finite task requires an infinite process, does this imply that motion itself is fundamentally impossible? Zeno, an ancient Greek philosopher, used this paradox to support Parmenides' views. Parmenides believed that reality is unchanging and that what we perceive as change or motion is illusory. Zeno's paradoxes, including the dichotomy paradox, were meant to demonstrate the contradictions inherent in the concepts of motion and change. By introducing these paradoxes, Zeno aimed to challenge his contemporaries to reconsider their views on the nature of reality. He used paradoxical scenarios to highlight what he saw as logical inconsistencies in the belief that movement and change could be real. While Zeno's paradox presents a compelling challenge, modern mathematics provides a resolution. Calculus, developed by mathematicians such as Isaac Newton and Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, offers tools to better understand infinite processes and continuous motion. Through calculus, we learn that while there may be an infinite number of steps, their size decreases so rapidly that a finite journey can still be completed. This modern understanding demonstrates that although infinite processes may theoretically exist, they do not prevent us from experiencing and understanding motion in everyday life. In our daily existence, we often face tasks that seem infinite, but are completed nonetheless. For example, when working on a project or solving a complex problem, we may initially feel overwhelmed by the many steps required. However, we ultimately manage to finish the task, proving that even tasks that seem infinite can be completed. Zeno's dichotomy paradox, despite being an ancient concept, serves as a powerful reminder of the complexities involved in understanding motion and infinity. It encourages us to reflect on how we perceive these concepts and appreciate the insights that both mathematics and philosophy can offer in making sense of the world.
So, how does this paradox align with what we actually experience in practical terms? People do, in fact, reach their destinations despite the notion of infinite steps. The key lies in understanding how infinite divisions can still result in a finite journey. Imagine you're walking towards a goal, like crossing a room. If you think about the journey in terms of dividing it into increasingly smaller steps, the paradox becomes clearer. Each step you take might seem smaller than the last, but your progress doesn't stop, and you eventually reach the other side of the room. This shows that, although there may be an infinite number of steps, they become so small that they do not prevent you from completing the journey. This understanding is important because it highlights that while there may be infinitely many steps in theory, they are so tiny that their impact is negligible. The idea of infinite steps doesn't stop you from reaching your destination. It merely indicates that the steps are so small that they don't hinder your progress. Consider everyday tasks that may seem endless but are eventually completed. For instance, when assembling a piece of furniture, you may face a series of steps, each requiring detailed adjustments. The process may seem complicated, but in the end, you finish the task. This mirrors the idea that despite having many smaller tasks or steps, you can still complete the entire process. Another example is writing a book. You begin with a blank page, adding one paragraph at a time. Each step may feel small, but ultimately,
These steps add up to a completed manuscript. In theory, the infinite nature of the task does not prevent the book's completion. The dichotomy paradox also invites reflection on how we perceive time and motion. It challenges our intuitive understanding of these concepts by suggesting that an infinite sequence should prevent us from reaching a conclusion. In reality, however, our experience of time and motion is continuous and seamless. Psychologically, dealing with tasks that seem endless can be overwhelming. Yet, understanding that small, incremental progress leads to a final result can help us manage and complete these tasks. This practical approach to the paradox aligns with its resolution, showing that despite theoretical complexities, we can still achieve our goals. The dichotomy paradox has influenced various fields, including mathematics, philosophy, and even popular culture. It emphasizes the importance of understanding infinite processes and how they relate to our finite experiences. In mathematics, the paradox led to the development of new concepts to address infinite series and continuity. In philosophy and culture, it serves as a metaphor for exploring the limits of human understanding and the nature of reality. The paradox encourages deep thinking about how we experience and conceptualize the world, pushing the boundaries of our knowledge and intuition. Zeno's dichotomy paradox wasn't just an intellectual puzzle. It played a significant role in the development of mathematical concepts. Although Zeno himself didn't offer a resolution, his paradoxes inspired later mathematicians to develop tools to handle infinite processes. One key advancement was the creation of calculus by Isaac Newton and Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz in the 17th century. Calculus provides a framework for understanding how infinite processes can result in finite outcomes. It uses concepts such as limits and infinite decimals to explain how an infinite series of increasingly smaller distances can add up to a finite total. This breakthrough in mathematics allowed scientists and engineers to solve complex problems involving motion, growth, and change. For example, calculus is used to model the movement of planets, predict the behavior of physical systems, and analyze economic trends. By addressing the issues raised by Zeno's paradox, calculus has become an essential tool in many scientific disciplines. The dichotomy paradox continues to provoke philosophical reflection on the nature of reality and our understanding of motion. It challenges our intuitions about how space and time function. If an infinite number of steps can be completed in a finite amount of time, what does that suggest about the nature of infinity and continuity? Philosophers have used this paradox to explore questions about existence and the limits of human knowledge. It raises profound questions about whether our perceptions of time and space accurately reflect the underlying nature of reality. By grappling with these questions, we gain deeper insights into the nature of existence and our place in the universe. Beyond mathematics and philosophy, Zeno's dichotomy paradox has influenced popular culture and creative thinking. It appears in literature, film, and art as a symbol of the challenges and complexities inherent in understanding infinity and motion. For example, in literature, authors have used the paradox to explore themes of time, perception, and the nature of reality. Science fiction writers, in particular, have drawn inspiration from the paradox to create imaginative scenarios that challenge our understanding of space and time. For instance, stories about time travel or infinite worlds often reflect the kinds of questions raised by Zeno's paradox. In art, visual representations have been created to capture the idea of an endless process or infinite sequence, reflecting the paradox's influence on our perception of space and form. Zeno's dichotomy paradox serves as a valuable educational tool for introducing concepts related to infinity, continuity, and mathematical reasoning. It provides a compelling example of how philosophical problems can lead to significant advancements in mathematics and science. By studying Zeno's paradox, Students and scholars can explore fundamental ideas about motion and infinity, while also appreciating the historical development of mathematical and philosophical thought. The paradox encourages critical thinking and helps students develop a deeper understanding of how abstract concepts can be applied to real-world problems. In conclusion, Zeno's dichotomy paradox is far more than an ancient puzzle. It is a gateway to exploring profound questions about the nature of motion, infinity, and reality. Its impact spans mathematics, philosophy, culture, and education. By examining this paradox, we gain valuable insights into how we understand the world and how we address complex problems. The dichotomy paradox continues to inspire and challenge us, reminding us of the limits of our intuition and the power of human reasoning. Reflecting on its implications, we come to appreciate how ancient ideas can shape and enrich our understanding of the